Negative reputation is sufficient reason to give a page a low quality rating by Google's raters. What does HTTP2 mean for website performance? And how long should you be willing to blog for without attracting many readers?
This week's in Organic. Live from London on thisweekinorganic.com.
Oh, that and more in This Week in Organic, episode number 28. So we're broadcasting live on Blab, and you're watching This Week in Organic, the weekly show that debates the ramifications of the latest SEO and content marketing news. Sign up to watch the next show live at thisweekinorganic.com. Hello and welcome, I'm David Bain, and each week I'll be joined by some knowledgeable, opinionated folks to discuss the latest happenings and anything that impacts organic traffic. And as for you in the live audience, get involved too, so click on the Tell a Little Bird button and tell your friends as well on the Facebook button here as well. That'd be cool to actually see your tweets, and also if you'd like to ask any questions, we'll try and actually read out whatever you're saying on the show. If you can interact with us, that'll be really good. But let's find out a bit more about today's guests, where they're from and what's caught their attention this week. So starting off with Mr. Johnny Ross.
Hello, Johnny Ross from johnnyross.com, based in Leeds in Yorkshire, and very much looking forward to talk what's going on in the digital world today.
Great, okay, thank you, Johnny. And also joining us today is Mr. Mark Asquith.
Hello there, sir. Yeah, that's right. I'm Mark Asquith from Hacksaw and the host of the UK's #1 small business podcast, Excellence Expected. The things that have got me going this week are the live streaming on Facebook, which is something I know we're going to be looking at. And that is a very exciting move, so I'm keen to get into that.
You're the live streaming man at the moment. Every day I'm seeing you pop up, even more than once a day. So that's exceptionally impressive. I'm just wondering if you're actually going to keep it up. So I'll be really interested to hear what your long-term strategy is to do with that and how that impacts content marketing in general. So also attempting to join us today is Rebecca. I know, Rebecca, you've had challenges with your audio. How's it going at the moment? Now, miming works okay, perhaps on a video, but for the audio version, that's not so good actually. So I'm not sure if Rebecca's able to actually do anything today. So no, she's shaking her head. She's had internet challenges today. She's had audio challenges. We really appreciate you actually trying to join us, but perhaps we'll have more luck with you another point in the future. It'll be wonderful to see you again. Have a great day there. I know you're based in the United States. That was the briefest appearance on This Week in Organic yet, so you've got the record for that. So we'll talk to you again at some point in the future, Rebecca. Bye-bye. But let's start off with topic number one, which is Phantom 3 has arrived. It's the latest Google SERP flux that has no name, but it's rumored to be a quality update. If that's what it is, we last saw that back in the month of May. So what really is quality? What does quality mean to you, Johnny, when it comes to actually delivering decent content online?
Something that people are interested in, really.
How do you decide that? Do you decide that yourself?
No. So I think it's, well, I think deciding it yourself is certainly, firstly, a good starting point. If you think people are interested in it, then that's certainly a good start. If you don't think people are interested in it, and you think you're just purely writing something for to get higher in Google, then that would be the big red flag. Stop it. So I guess it's all about looking at metrics, understanding how people engage with your content, and identifying stuff that really works. And when you find stuff that works, creating more content around that subject. So yeah, quality, it makes sense. Quality is really key, and ultimately, the more engaging, the better. And I don't think there's been an update though.
In some people's eyes, okay. In some people's eyes, there is. In some people's eyes, there isn't. Have you not seen any flux? Any clients of yours had any issues?
I've not seen any changes across our clients. No, no. I've seen big changes in the last month on domain authority on Moz and number of links on Moz, but I've not seen any ranks or organic issues with Google.
Mark, is quality expected?
Oh man, that was nice. You should be the co-host on my show. Yeah, I think it's an interesting. It's kind of an interesting juxtaposition for many publishers. I often
That's
think
a good word, that is.
it's a good one, isn't it? That one, I saw that earlier in a cracker. But I think it's an interesting problem that people generally have, and that is the question that you asked: what defines quality? And I think there's a bit of a challenge for people because often, like the way that I tend to write or create content is, especially for Excellence Expected, it's very much things that I would be interested in. Like that is my first barometer of content, and then I get really deep into that and publish the content out. And it kind of worries me. Like I didn't know anything about this Phantom 3 until I got your email. That just echoes Johnny's thought around, is it actually an update? And
well, it's an update maybe to people who haven't actually been delivering quality in the past. So perhaps you have, so it's not impacted you.
That's a great point. That is a great point. And it kind of makes me question the way that I create content for myself and for my clients, because you are constantly on the back foot with this kind of thing. But being honest, I'm not, I don't really take much notice of the Moz side of things, and I'm not big into the actual SEO measurement these days for my clients. That's done elsewhere. But I think when it comes to the content creation, it's something that I really, really struggle with personally. And my barometer is always, would I read this? That is it.
And do you alter the way that you actually put your content together based upon feedback that you receive from people who actually are your readers, are your subscribers?
Do you know, yeah, that's a really good question. And the way that the short answer is yes, I do. And what tends to come out is that I got it the other day, actually. I always thought that I wrote like I talked, which, you knowing me like you do, David, is probably not a great thing. And it was quite startling because one of my friends and someone that reads the content that I send out regularly said, you don't sound anything like you when you're writing the emails. And I know that's not a qualitative thing, but that to me was quite a startling point, and it does make me wonder, do I change the tonality of it? Is that going to impact the so-called quality of things? And I'm all about the personality and getting the person behind the content out and actually into the content. And I'm kind of scared to do that, just in case it does impact things negatively. So I'll be honest, sometimes I don't know where to turn with that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Johnny, so if you say to a client, okay, you've got to have a great website, you've got to actually produce quality content, and the client says to you, okay, how do you define quality content? What would you say back to them?
I think it's about, someone said here, A. Halliday, something about getting your staff to have a read, and if they'd share it, then that's sort of a good little mark. And it is doing things like that. It's about understanding, when we first try and put a content plan together, one of the first things we do is talk to depending on the size of the business, talk to customer services or talk to whoever's answering the phones, and say, what do people ask you? What do clients ask? And a lot of content is based around what people are asking. So you can then produce content that people are actually actively looking for. So that's probably one of the first things, and it's about identifying trends. But it's also I'll put my hands up. We don't do this ourselves. We should be. We do it for our clients. We talk to our clients about it, but we don't do it enough. But it's about sending surveys out. It's about asking readers what they think. It's about understanding what content gets comments, for example. But before you've got that data, it is very much going back to understanding what your well, first of all, you've got to define your audience, but secondly, it's about understanding what your audience want. And it could be even a case where you actually go to clients and ask them what type of content would be helpful, what type of things could we be giving you, whether it be in video format, in written format, images, whatever it might be, infographics, research. What would be helpful to your business, and that would be a great thing to do.
Yeah, great advice there. Well, in relation to that, actually, the second topic, and that's Google's search quality ratings. One sentence within that document jumped out at me, and that's negative reputation is sufficient reason to give a page a low quality rating, and that kind of scared me a bit. Now, what is an appropriate way of encouraging your customers to actually to give you a positive online rating, maybe? Because what Google are looking for here is to deliver results that have existing positive comments about them there as well. So that looks as if Google are actually actively looking for websites to actually have those comments, those positive comments about them, but also not have negative comments about them there as well. And it seems to be an absolutely integral part of whether or not they're going to rank a website highly or not. So both of you guys actually have agencies. So you must actually have listings within Google Local, and then you must hopefully have, you know, the facility there to get people to actually write comments about you there as well. Do you actually do anything actively to encourage people to write reviews if they've been satisfied with your service? Johnny, you're nodding away there. Have you done anything in that?
Absolutely. We as an agency have done a lot of that, and we get clients too as well. Ultimately, all of this, right, okay, going back a step, I can't believe for 1 minute that Google isn't using things like number of social shares and review data to rank websites. I can't believe that it's not using it. It makes sense. It makes common sense, doesn't it? Although it's easy to manipulate, there are ways of testing it. So I'm confident that Google is using the reviews it's getting itself. I'm confident it's using things like reviews from things like Trustpilot and TripAdvisor, etc., and lots of other review sites and whether things have been shared, etc., etc. Ultimately, in all of this, if your service isn't great, then all of this is just going to amplify it. So if someone thinks you're crap, then they're just going to shout louder on social media or on reviews. There's nothing you can do about that, except offer good service, of course. And if you're not offering good service, then you're not going to win anyway. So the first thing is you've got to offer good service. It might sound daft, but a lot of companies don't do it, do they? And then the second thing is, I think you've got to have in your whatever you call it, workflow, pipeline, whatever it might be, of that customer journey, has to be actively asking for reviews, and potentially choosing the right time to ask for a review. Typically not asking for a review when you've posted something out and it hasn't actually got there yet. That's not ideal, is it? But asking for reviews at the right time, but always asking for reviews. I think reviews is a very key part to the customer journey. And so how can you negate it against negative reviews? Well, first of all, good customer service, but second of all, constantly asking for reviews, because even if you might get a couple of negative reviews, there's not a lot you can do about that necessarily, but the more reviews you ask for and the more positive they are, the more it will get rid of the negative ones. So I think
you say at the right time. When is the right time? Is the right time as soon as they become a customer or a few months after?
It depends. Well, I guess it depends on the business, doesn't it? If you're an e-commerce site, then asking for a review, it depends. It depends exactly what it's for. I mean, in a lot of cases, you see what's on e-commerce, which is slightly frustrating. You see someone give a review for something that's a present in a month's time, and so actually they've not even used the product. But anyway, so timing is difficult to work out, I guess, is what I was trying to say there. And it very much depends on whether you're offering a service or a product as to when you ask for that review. But I guess you're waiting for that really happy moment. So for example, if we're producing a website and you get to the point where the client's really happy, you go live. Well, if they're happy, that's the day to ask for the review, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just using some common sense about working out when the right time is, but ensuring that you constantly are asking for reviews.
So using some common sense, so that means not actually automating it into your process and actually doing it personally.
In an ideal world, of course. Yeah. But the common sense side of it would be understand, every product and every service is different. So you could put automation in as long as you understand how your products and services would work and how that journey works.
So one other question, Johnny, in relation to your personal experience. If you suddenly got 4 or 5 reviews that were 1 star and really negative and you didn't recognize who they're from, so it looked a bit fishy, could you deal with that? Is there a process so that you can actually undertake to actually try and actually get these reviews removed?
Well, you can certainly report them. and as to whether anything's going to happen, it's a difficult one. And negative reviews, there's I'm sure a whole industry of producing negative reviews for your competitors. It's a very difficult one, but I think there are a lot of processes in place. For example, I think Facebook, Twitter, not that Twitter you've got reviews, but if you look at the big channels, they are all working to get rid of fake accounts. They're all working to understand if the same IP is being used and all of that sort of stuff. And I think you just have to put some trust in it. You can't change the system, but you can play the system. And ultimately, if you haven't got hundreds of positive reviews, then when you get those 4 negative reviews, you're screwed, aren't you?
Yep.
Whereas if you have 100 positive reviews and you get 4 or 5 negative ones, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it scared me certainly when you were mentioning negative SEO, negative actually approaching competitors and adding negative reviews to their listings. Then the fact that Google actually saying within their documents what it will do is actually encourage people to vote down the quality of a website based on reviews, and that seemed a bit scary and actually flaming the possibility of actually having negative reviews. And hopefully that won't become more of an issue moving forward, because it looks like reviews are going to become more of an integral part of whether or not a site's going to be popular or not.
I think the process is becoming a bit more robust, and I think, as I was saying, I think the thing of using, understanding whether it's the same IP, whether that account is doing other things as well, or if it's just leaving negative reviews across the internet. I think there's always going to be ways around it, but I do believe the process is getting better.
Okay, that's good. Mark, do you actually actively encourage your customers and perhaps even prospects to actually leave reviews on your services?
We do, yeah, but we tend not to work with that many clients, especially as Hacksaw. We're much more focused on the long-term relationship side of the client base, and we don't work with that many clients. We very, very consciously only work with a handful of very good people, which is all well and good, but then you end up with 5 reviews. Brilliant, nice one. So the thing that I often think with this kind of thing, and just kind of picking up on what Johnny mentioned, is that I don't know what the future's like for this kind of system, a review system. Like, yes, I can see the short to mid-term it being a very specific kind of ranking factor. But then I often wonder to myself, well, is this just something else that means that actually it's not about the quality content, it's not about the quality of a service, it's actually about who's the better salesman and who's the better at PR. I know companies that are absolutely terrible at what they do in whatever industry, but you absolutely love them because the person that you speak to is fantastic, and that guy or that girl is going to get a review out of you because they make you feel like you're the only thing that matters on that day in their world, so you give them the review. That's it. That's what they want. So it just makes me wonder, is this just another thing to be manipulated? Is this just another link farm? It's quite an interesting problem, I think, because it is an extremely good metric if it's genuine, but is it open to the chatterboxes, the salespeople, the people that are fantastic at PR, just getting the reviews? And they, of course, being genuine reviews, but actually maybe inflating things a little bit more to counter the other genuine negative reviews that may come as a result of, actual service reflection. So I don't know. I always find reviews a bit of an odd thing. And I often find that people trying to get people to take action on things as well, but asking people for a review and getting them to convert to doing that review. It's not the easiest thing in the world because we're all a little bit lazy, aren't we? I mean, when was the last time we all reviewed something?
But you look at hotels and TripAdvisor, for example. The biggest factor for someone booking a hotel on TripAdvisor is the review. And whilst I completely get, I totally agree with you, Mark. It completely can be manipulated. There's no question about it. However, if you don't bring reviews into the equation, then what you've got is you're not triangulating to understand if something's good or not. And I think I see reviews as a way of triangulating to work out if the other data that they've got on a website stacks up and matches what people are saying about the website. Yes, it can be manipulated, but all parts of it can be manipulated. You're going to talk about user behavior, and and that can totally be manipulated as well. So I'm interested to talk about that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I completely agree with that. I think that is completely valid, and I just wonder about the TripAdvisor example is a really great example, and I just think that's a critical mass. That has become the way that we choose the hotel. That's just for me, that's the critical mass that's occurred, and it's tipped over, crested the wave, and it's become the norm. If you think about a plumbing company or an electrician's company, you've got someone with 30 years experience, fantastic, 3 men in a van, doing an amazing job and satisfying everyone that they go to. And then you've got a younger set of people that they're chasing the cash, but they're better at Googling. That's the kind of thing that I often wonder about reviews. Is it just who's better at getting the reviews? But you're absolutely right. It's very valid.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, no, it is that as well. You're right.
There's no way around it, though, is there? What else is there that's better than a review? There is nothing.
And is it just the case that that businesses have to realize that, for example, if they're not on Twitter, they're missing out. If they're not here, they're missing out. If they're not getting reviews, they're missing out.
Exactly, and I think that's the challenge for a lot of the businesses that don't, especially kind of the bricks and mortar, or more, I don't like the word, but the more traditional businesses that have always shied away from digital marketing. Like, we don't need it. We're referral based, and I think that is the biggest challenge for people, especially around social media and reviews coming into this. If we see positive sentiment on social media as a factor as well, it's just vital that people. I've got a dog barking.
You had that last time as well.
It does my head, honestly, barks everything. But it's vital that people do start to make that shift. And as marketers, how the heck do you educate people on this? But more so, how do you get people to take that action and actually do it after we leave? That's the challenge.
I think it emphasizes the importance of actually building your personal brand authority as well. And if you do that and people get to know you as who you are, then they're not going to be as likely to pay attention to third-party reviews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I get your point, Mark, about you've only got a few clients. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that business model in the slightest. I guess because of that business model, you're not in a position where you're as much relying on a Google ranking anyway, to an extent. And what I was going to say was just on the other side of the coin, for a model where you've got consumers or a large volume of people, one of the easiest ways to get reviews quickly that are meaningful, and by that I mean Google Plus reviews, which Google's going to look at first, I guess, is looking through the email list and only selecting people who've got Gmail addresses, because they're already signed up to Google. And very, very quickly and easily can they leave a review, whereas people that have got Yahoo haven't necessarily got a Gmail account, a Google account, get to the review page, don't want to necessarily sign up. And so you can also look at some quick wins from an e-commerce point of view and targeting people with Gmail accounts. Anyway, bye.
Yeah.
No, sorry.
I'll just say everyone in UK saying in the chat, we like to think we're good at Google, but being an IT support company that deals with other businesses and older clients, a lot of our customers don't have a Google account to leave a review, or perhaps even wouldn't be comfortable doing that even if they did, or weren't aware they had a Google account. So it depends on the type of business you're in. But I guess if you're in that industry, your competitors have the same kind of restrictions as you. So hopefully it won't be so much of an issue.
Absolutely, but it's about, when you're asking for a review, it's about giving options. I mean, we've got an email template that makes it so easy, and it sort of says, if you struggle with Google but you're on Facebook, click here, or you can leave LinkedIn reviews or recommendations. Sorry. So it's about making it. It's about understanding the audience, understanding where they might be, and as David's just said, probably your competitors in the same position anyway.
Yeah, no, but that's great advice. And you said the first point was ask at the right time, but also make it easy for people to leave a review as well. And those are two great pieces of advice. And if you do that, then the likelihood is, even if you get a couple of negative reviews that aren't maybe deserved,
they're lost in it. Yeah,
exactly.
They get lost. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's wander to our third topic, which is apparently everyone should be moving to HTTP2, as Googlebot will soon be supporting it. But what will HTTP2 actually mean for website performance? Well, most browsers are connecting to servers using HTTP 1.1 at the moment. That was implemented back in 1999, before the mobile web, before video streaming. HTTP2 means that multiple connections can be made between a browser and a server, and that server now can initiate the loading of content, bringing with it a slew of marketing automation possibilities. But to support HTTP2, it looks like your site has to be secure. Plus, if your site was very well optimized for HTTP 1.1, it's likely not to be optimized well for HTTP2. So a lot of technical stuff there, but there are some things that, Mark, you will be doing as a design agency that will help with page load speed for HTTP 1.1 that may actually be detrimental to be HTTP2. For instance, actually, you'll know about image sprites. Image sprites, where you're actually putting all the images of a web page on one particular file, and that you're just actually having one file to be downloaded as part of that web page, and that helps with the speed. But it's not the optimum way for HTTP2. Now, is this something that you've looked into at all, and is it something that you've actually considered to actually alter your web design process, for instance, over the next few months or so?
It's a right old pain in the backside, isn't it, when you think about it? And I mean, it's fantastic, first of all, that that's happening. You know, you're absolutely right what you're saying. HTTP 1.1, 1999, no one knew what was going to happen with the web. No one expected it to become this. So it's fantastic that that's happening. It's what needs to happen. But then there's a few things that it raises. The first one is, yes, of course, Google supports it, but then, of course, it supports a lot of things, and it has supported things for a long time that have not become mainstream or didn't become mainstream for a while. Things like, you know, the mobile side of things. So that's the first question. You know, how quickly will it start to affect ranking factors? That's quite an interesting one. But then, from a more practical perspective, as an agency, what do you do with that? How do you, at the end of the day, it's going to take you time to change this. What do you do? Do you approach clients and say, well, listen, guys, here's what is happening. Do you want to buy this upgrade and we'll change everything out that we did before? Does it become an SEO company's job, or how do you do that? Will the clients pay for that? Will they see the benefit of that? I mean, we still get challenged, not a lot, but we do still get challenged on, do I actually need a mobile site? So, you know, if you try selling to someone, we can make you HTTP2 compliant, they're just going to be like, well, actually, what time is it? I think I've got to leave. So there's a few things with that. I mean, yes, the panacea is to get to HTTP2, and as an agency, be supporting that out of the box. Yes, that's fantastic. In realism, how the heck do you implement that, and how do you do it quickly and effectively and make it affordable for people?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on whether or not your competitors are embracing it, and whether your competitors are suddenly half the speed of your site in terms of loading time. That's probably what the main measurement's going to be. Is that something that you've put any thought into, Johnny?
No.
Okay, next topic. No.
I'll put my hands up. It's not my expert area.
But you must occasionally, obviously, look at site speed for your clients.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
So, so this is something that could significantly impact that. You could have site speed suddenly, halving because of this. And if that's the case, then obviously your focus will be right on there.
I was reading something yesterday. Was it? You lose 5% of visitors every second it takes your website to load, I think.
There's different stats, certainly, yeah, but it goes up very, very quickly, yeah.
Yeah, and but it's not too difficult to get websites to load sort of sub 4 seconds. And I get where it's, I sort of think that the browsers need to just find better ways of caching stuff so that so that stuff's pre-cached, if that makes sense. Google.
Yeah, okay. You've got Confluent Forms saying a decent point, just saying not about load or just about load. It's about load and render in the browser, because you can connect with the server, but unless you're actually, for the visitor, delivering them a website that's useful, then there's no point in actually calling that a load.
Yeah, I guess yes, I can understand speed. I mean, can we believe of the days that we used to wait for the modem to dial up? I mean,
but the thing is, web pages used to be so much smaller then. I mean, 10 years ago, the recommendation was for a web page to be 100K, no bigger than that. And now you're seeing loads of websites, 10 times that size.
Yeah.
And a lot of web designers now don't even care the fact that they're delivering a bloated PNG image that by itself is 1,000K. That's not good.
And at the same time, they're developing, what is it, Li-Fi, LED, Wi-Fi through LED, which is 100 times faster or something. You've got to be able to see the light, which makes it a bit nonsense. But anyway, I don't know. It's not my go-to area. I think we need to look at ways of speeding things up. But I guess it's just going to be over a long, slow process, I guess, and at some point, people will start changing how we're developing, and over time, I don't think it's something we need to jump on.
Well, I mean, it's early next year that Googlebot will be starting to support this, and so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a fairly quick rollout in 2016. It depends on browsers supporting it as well, and also servers where a website is hosted supporting it as well. And if browsers and servers support it, then it's probably something that a lot of websites have to become aware of fairly quickly. Obviously, new site designs are probably going to be optimized much more quickly than existing sites, because you've got older sites that perhaps combine JavaScript and CSS files, and that may not be the optimal way to deliver files for HTTP2. HTTP2 also offers faster compression, and there's also an impact on CDNs as well. No sharding required, which is the delivery of files from different subdomains, different servers. So there's a lot to think about. It's just something I think to be aware of at the moment, because it could significantly change the way that web pages and files within those web pages are designed and delivered. So I thought it was an important topic to actually bring up. But we're going to be talking about a few other things. So coming up, we're going to be talking about which user behavior metrics you should be tracking, how long you should be prepared to blog for without having many readers, and also Facebook launching their live video streaming product, or at least actually testing that just now. But we're getting loads of great connections. We've got Andy Halliday saying in the chat, HTTP2 get on. we're gonna hear that at one point. Yeah, absolutely. So keep the chat going. We'll try and read as much as possible and interact with you as much as we can. But moving on to the next topic, which is Ali Barry Servich published an article on Search Engine People this week, talking about 7 new SEO opportunities in 2016. One of his points was that user behavior will soon affect your rank. So user behavior on a site affecting your rank. Is on-site user behavior something that you've looked at, Johnny?
Yes.
Ooh, phew. Okay.
Yes, because, for example, if we're doing a social media campaign or a search engine optimization campaign or a pay-per-click campaign, we're looking at metrics for example, time on site, bounce rate, average page views, to try and understand which campaigns are more effective, which campaigns are more engaging, looking at what triggers goals, whether people are making purchases or filling out forms, etc. So I think that data is important when you're running campaigns to look at. And then if you look at pay-per-click campaigns, Google's certainly using that data when it gives you a quality score on campaigns, understanding click-through rates, etc. The problem I have with it, though, is that it's really easy to manipulate. So if I was using it as an agency to try and understand what's working and what's not, and I'm not manipulating it, then that's brilliant. The fact is, you can easily manipulate bounce rate. So I'm not convinced that Google has got a good enough algorithm to be able to, for example, use the bounce rate as a factor.
Yeah.
You could easily just put a tiny bit of code on the website that creates a page view, it's too easy to manipulate.
Google say that they don't incorporate Google Analytics stats into their algorithm, obviously, because that's a tracking mechanism. So it's unfair of them to include that, within the scoring. They'll obviously be aware of when someone visits a page and when someone clicks the back button, and they may have additional data through the search functionality within the browser, certainly as well. But you're right in saying that there's not a lot of information that they can rely on to really measure quality user experience. Mark, how do you actually try and make a site designed well with users in mind?
Well, I think everyone should be doing that anyway. I think that's what sets the good agencies apart from the ones that know how to build stuff. That's the big difference, is they know how to get the results. And I think, we talk about usability, we talk about user experience, user-centric design, we say all the right words, every agency does, but you've got to really go deep into that, and you've got to think about the business side of things. And, I think we saw Trajan, didn't we, down at New Media Europe, and he did a fantastic talk on conversion optimization and actually creating websites that attract the right type of journey. And I think that's where some people tend to fall down, and what we tend to certainly do, and the big focus of mine, particularly with the podcast site and the testing that I do on that, is just making sure, using the tracking software, I love Hotjar, so things like Hotjar, making sure that people do what I think they're going to do, and if they don't, what do they do? So I think you've got to get into that from day one. I think public sector websites just really struggle with this. So the council websites, if you look at the .gov.uk site and some of the local authority sites, they're really starting to get on top of this and work from a complete user basis and take out all the visual noise that are associated with a website, and make it really transaction-led, really process-oriented. It's function over form. So I think if a business or an organization wants to start tracking that or get better at that, you've just got to stop thinking like the business or the agencies. For me, it's pretty simple, really.
We've got Confluent Forums again, sharing a decent link within the chat there. So it's called the Impact of Queries, Long and Short Clicks and Click-Through Rate on Google's Ranking, Whiteboard Friday. So it's a Moz post there as well. But I'm sure people can search for it if you're listening to the audio replay or the video replay of this.
I agree. Sorry, I agree with what you said, though. Click-through rate on organic search, I'm confident is a ranking factor, just like it is a quality score factor on pay-per-click.
Yeah, I remember years ago just clicking on organic results and being absolutely sure that my actions actually impacted that. But obviously, I'm talking about 10 years ago there, so Google's algorithms have got a little bit cleverer to actually determine that it's one person actually clicking on search results. But I'm sure, as you say, that it does certainly. Mark, what would you say? What's user behavior metrics are the most important ones to be keeping an eye on?
For me, this is kind of where I get a bit, soapboxy. But for me, it's whatever you want it to be as a business. This is why I believe it's different for everyone. The user metrics. Let's take the rankings out of the equation. You've got to be really focused on what you want the people to do. So I'm a big fan of just creating your own metrics, push them to the right place, send them to the right information, give them the right value at the right time, and see what happens and measure that and make the changes. So, for example, you need to be back to the council example. For a website that's got millions and millions of page views, and you're creating a website that has got to serve hundreds of thousands of people, you've got to be sure that you're measuring the right actions in the right departments. And the only way you can do that is to just dig deep into the business and assign your own metrics. The industry metrics are fine, and the ones that affect ranking factors, whatever. But for me, the ones that we measure and the ones that I'm personally really keen on are the ones that affect the bottom line business.
Yeah, it's the ROI, isn't it?
And not even just the ROI, but the Like for example, again, back to the council websites, the things like the channel shift. Can you move someone from making a phone call to getting what they need within a click or two? You know, shifting people to transact online, and not necessarily monetary transactions, but getting information that they're normally ringing a switchboard for. That's a really high scale example of, you know, like something like a council site. But I think that people kind of expect these metrics to be some silver bullet or something magic that someone else will know. And I think if you really take them apart from the beginning of a project, you can get much more success much quicker with them.
I think it's good advice to actually say that it completely depends on your business as well. You know, because and also I like your point about trying to minimize the number of clicks as well. That's good user experience. You're not necessarily trying to encourage people to visit as many pages as possible on your site. You're trying to encourage people to actually get what they want as soon as possible on your website.
Well, that's a big thing. That's a massive thing, because you got to understand whether your website's a website that anyone is ever going to care about. So, as again, prime example, a council website. No one comes to a council website to browse the thing. Who wants to browse the council website? You know, unless you want to check out the colours of the bins, no one's going to do that. So that, you know, when we're faced with projects like that, where it's a large scale, high number of visits kind of website, the metrics that they initially start looking at are all wrong, because they're looking at bounce rates, they're looking at you know, the number of pages viewed per journey, and actually they're seeing these things in the wrong light. They're saying that, you know, if I'm viewing a high number, that's a good thing. Is it really? That's probably a pretty bad thing for a council website. So I do think it's about understanding what type of website you want to create as well, because then you understand the behavior and you can turn the numbers, and the numbers can reflect the true behavior, the true intent.
That's wonderful points. You know, as with every topic discussed, we could keep on going, but let's move on to the next one, which is yesterday, John Lincoln published an article on Marketing Land called The 6 Biggest Mistakes in Corporate Blogging. The sixth mistake that he pointed out was giving up too soon, saying that many of the top blogs online today took 5 or 10 years to get there. So, Mark, you know, how long should you keep on going, you know, if you're not getting any feedback when you're actually writing blog posts?
As long as you can without hating it. That's the honest answer. Blogging, let's think about it. Blogging's writing. It's not for everyone. But you do have to persist. I completely agree with that. And I think so many people see a blog as the silver bullet. It's the thing that, January 4th, I'm going to come back from Christmas. I'm all fired up. What am I going to do? 2 things. Start sending email newsletters and start a blog. Magic. And then people get to February and realize it's bloody hard work. So you've got to really enjoy what you're doing. And if it's a corporate blog, people don't enjoy it. No one wants to talk about it, especially if they're an employee of a business who, you know, do I spend an hour like this doing this for the corporate side of things, or do I spend an hour talking about Lost and actually write a blog post about that? You know, which do I love the most? So I think you've got to just keep doing it as long as you are naturally, back to what we said earlier about the quality of the content, as long as you can naturally produce decent content, keep doing it as long as you can, because just like anything, it's going to take a heck of a long time to get any traction. Readers aren't going to flock to you. You need to prove your worth. You've got to earn that trust before people start actually sharing what you're doing, and that's how things grow. So, long-winded way to say, as long as blog for as long as you can keep it up whilst enjoying it. That's my answer. And
you're also a podcaster as well, and you've got quite a few people who are podcasters who are clients of yours. So I bring that up because is podcasting just the same? Can you often have to podcast for 4 or 5 years before actually getting that significant traction, that mass audience?
Well, I think that's a fantastic question, but I think the point there to draw from that is like, what is the ideal number? Like, what do we class as traction? Colin Gray made a fantastic point when he turns up of when he spoke at Podcast Movement around. Listen, if I've got 30 listeners to my podcast, people are going to compare me to these guys, and they're going to compare me to the best in the biz. What I mean is people with the biggest numbers. And they're going to get really distracted by that. They're going to believe that they're not doing a great job because they don't have the tens of thousands of downloads per episode. But actually turn it around. What if you were talking to 30 or 40 or 100 or 200 people in a room every week, and they turned up to see you every single week? You would be absolutely over the moon with it. So I think the word traction is quite a it's what you want that traction to be. How do you define traction? And I think that's the question. Like for me, if you've got a podcast that's got 10 listeners, you've got 10 people that listen to what you say that you didn't have before you had a podcast.
Absolutely.
So,
and it also depends on the quality of your listeners as well, and if they're relevant to what you're saying as well. And if you can influence 10 people who are very relevant in your industry, then that could be a fantastic thing to be doing on a weekly basis.
yeah, massive.
Johnny, if you're talking to a client and if you said to them, look, you need to be blogging, and by the way, it may be 5 years before you get any significant traction from this, what kind of response do you think they'd say to you?
What kind of response would they say? Well, okay, so to answer that question, what you could say is that, look, blogging is the answer. It's going to take 5 years. However, we need to run a pay-per-click campaign at the same time to increase some traction and get some money in to pay for it. So you could use social advertising, pay-per-click, to in effect finance the project
and retarget as well.
Yeah, totally. So, I once heard an expert. We're going back a few years, and he said it takes 3 to 5 years to build a community. And I agree with that. I don't think that sounds wrong. And I see blogging or podcasting or this type of thing. I see this as a core of any campaign, really. And I'm a massive advocate of blogging. I hear what Mark's saying. You've got to be passionate about it. You've got to stay passionate about it. And if you're not, then that's not good either. But my advice is that, yes, it's true, but you don't have to necessarily be the person. If we're talking about blogging and writing, you don't have to be the person writing the content. And you could, and at the same time, you don't want some sort of cheap content either. But if you've got someone, a very trusted person that understands you, understands your business, and you can have regular conversations with them. You can work on editorial calendars and marketing calendars, so you're planning well in advance and well ahead. Then it's actually very easy and very cost effective to put something into the business to do it. So it takes a long time, but it's completely worth it. It's probably, I think, one of the most robust methods, and it's a long-term method as well. It's a long-term solution as well.
So is it still a good idea to be blogging as a business, even though it's not the leaders within that business who are blogging?
Absolutely, and I think and at the same time, I think the leaders do need to be blogging, but it doesn't actually have to be them that write it, and that's the point. So it's about them buying into the idea that their name should be there and that they should be out there. And I'm not saying that it's not their opinion. It's got to be, obviously, it's got to be authentic. It's got to be real, but they don't have to write it. We've done loads of guest blogs where we have interviewed the person and we've written the content, because people don't want to write, people don't want to go on a camera, people don't want to talk, but they've got good things to say, and so it's about investing in resource to write the content or to put the content out there.
I like that suggestion of interviewing them, because if you interview someone for half an hour, then that could be a month's worth of blog posts.
So,
as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the core of our business is all about blogging. So that's all I ever talk about. And I think it helps you have an integrated campaign. So whatever you're doing on your blog is replicated by what you're then doing on Twitter that week, what you're doing on Facebook that week, what you might be doing on Periscope that week, etc., etc., etc. And the value, and at the same time, it's boosting your SEO because you're putting content on the website. You're also coming up with content for regular email campaigns. So instead of suddenly getting to the time and thinking, I need to do an email campaign, if you're blogging regularly, then you've got snippets of text to put into email campaigns. So I do see it as a core. I see it, and I think it's really important. And I'm sorry, it's also a way to generate links, because if you've got really good blog content, you've got good hooks. So it takes time. That's just the way it is.
And an interesting actually comment within the chat here, a challenging but thought-provoking post I read recently, 50% of content gets 8 shares or less, why content fails and how to fix it. So that's a post on BuzzSumo. So if you're live here, you can click on that. If you're listening to the replay, maybe you can join us live next time. So we regularly broadcast at 4 p.m. GMT, 11 a.m. East Coast time USA on Blab. But let's move on to the final topic, which is Facebook is apparently testing live video streaming. So is live video streaming a fad or an essential part of a progressive marketing strategy for most businesses? So Mark, how do you integrate live video streaming as part of your content strategy? And is this a great thing for everyone to be doing?
I love live streaming. I'm a narcissistic SOB with my beard and my bad hair.
But I remember 6 months ago or so, seeing you on Periscope for the first time, and you were going, oh, yeah, I don't know what to be saying here. So you were uncomfortable with it to begin with.
Yeah, but it's brilliant, isn't it? You get one heart and you're like, boom, Tom Cruise, eat that. Yeah, so I'll be in the next Mission Impossible, I'm convinced. So it's an interesting one. We've actually got a client, Brad Burton, who's he's a verified guy on Facebook, is what I'm trying to say. And he's got the Facebook live streaming facility now. And it's awesome. It's really cool. Like I do Periscope, I do Blabs regularly. And it's really, really good in terms of getting out there. But the biggest problem that I find is that you're having to build a new audience on Blab or Periscope. What I like about Facebook in particular is that you're just building on what you've already got. Like people have been doing the Facebook pages for a long time. And I think people have kind of stopped, well, certainly I've seen people stop caring so much about Facebook pages. So for me, it's twofold really with Facebook. It's fantastic to rejuvenate a page. And 2, it's a great way of just building on the audience that you've already got.
It's interesting that you're talking about actually building a new audience. Have you tried to actually bring your existing audience over to Periscope and find that actually my existing audience prefer this platform, so there's no point in doing that?
Well, yeah, I've tried it both ways, pulling people across from Periscope and pulling people from the podcast or the blog or from real life onto Periscope and so on. And the bottom line is it all works. And the reason that I say that is it's way, 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 way too early to actually say what works and what doesn't with something like that. Because if I talk to you, David, at somewhere like New Media Europe and say, "Oh, by the way, I'm on Periscope. Check me out. You're an early adopter. You love the gadgets like me, and that's it. You're going to do it because it's a cool thing, and you're an early adopter." And the people that aren't going to do it are just not going to do it. They just won't be on Periscope yet. Whereas if you try and shift someone over to a podcast who already listens to a podcast, that's much more likely because they're already ingrained into the technology. They already know how that works. It's a comfortable thing. But I've seen some success with it. I've seen people that follow me around. There's a guy called Mukesh Craft Digital, I think actually got us on, he was on the last time I was on This Week on Organic. And he follows me on the Periscope. He follows me all over the place. So it does work. And the way that I integrate it into everything that I do is I use it as part of a content mix. So the Periscope, I do a small business lunch on a Friday, which is a 15-minute me talking, very impersonal, wearing a Green Lantern t-shirt and some bloody antlers for Christmas, and just, showing the personality. And I think that is where it's very, very useful to allow your personality to shine through and give you the credibility that a blog post can't give you. E.g., the blog post and the podcast will get across how good you are at what you do. Being like this with a phone and showing yourselves as you really are, that is what builds a relationship. So I think it's here to stay, and I think you can use it if you plan it.
So it adds personality onto what you're doing, but it doesn't actually weave a thread throughout other pieces that you publish elsewhere. It's not part of that. It's simply actually another layer on top of what you're doing.
Well, no, actually, that's a really good point. I actually use it both ways. So what I do is a small business lunch on a Friday will either be one of two things. It'll be something brand new and fresh, or it will be something that has been picked up on one of the podcasts or in a blog post or one of the emails that I've sent out. And that ties the thread. It pulls that thread a little bit further. What I also do on Blab is I schedule, I put content out every day, every weekday. So at the end of the month, what I do is I pick out the most successful piece of content, get a co-host on, and actually talk a bit more in depth about that particular piece of content or the topic that we covered. And everything that I do, I close with my tagline, which is, from the podcast and make sure people fly to the podcast. And the numbers have increased, no doubt. The numbers have very steadily increased since I started live streaming. And the great thing is I get more responses to my emails. People actually reply to me much more than they used to do because they feel like they know me.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still testing it, but I love it. I think it's fantastic.
Johnny, how's live streaming going for you?
Well, yeah, I get it, but I don't do it. I should be doing it. Ultimately, I've just got one big point on this, really, that people engage far more with video content than they do with images or text. And so it's absolute common sense that really it should be part of the strategy. I want to do it. My biggest issue is probably time, and that's my excuse for now. But it's genuinely is time, though.
Mark, what do you say to someone who uses time as an excuse not to live stream?
You're baiting me. You're baiting me. I always use the same thing as I always say the time thing. If you've not got time for it, then it doesn't matter enough to you. That's the only thing that I always say to people. But I understand what's going on. The thing that I like about Periscope, though, in particular, is that the dog that was barking a second ago. He was the crazy giant dog. People know that dog. Because I live stream from my dog walks. I live stream. I did a pre-blab live stream to promote this, and I showed the dog chilling out. He looked a bit grumpy because I was coming upstairs and locking myself away. And it's really, really interesting because people really start to mesh together the two worlds. And as someone that wants to build a personal brand, if that is what you're trying to achieve, live streaming is fantastic. But Johnny, that the comment about the time is quite a flippant one, but I get that you need to plan this thing out. If you're going to do it properly, you do need to plan it. So time is a big factor. You can't just press record and hope for it to work, So I do get that.
So in terms of using Periscope and Blab together, Mark, would you never broadcast a discussion with someone else or attempt to do that live on Periscope? You'd actually do the pre-discussion on Periscope and then drive people to Blab after that?
Do you know, it's a tough one. And again, for the small business lunch, I tried to do, I didn't try it actually. I was going to do it and I went off it. I was going to do both. So I was going to have the phone on the old tripod I've got it there, next to the screen. And I was going to do a Blab and a Periscope. But what I found the difficulty is with that is that Blabs are terrible if you're just talking. People don't respond to them. I mean, it's the tagline of Blab is watch live conversations. Having a conversation with yourself is pretty dull. And I think that's the big difference. So to answer the question, I've tried doing both together and it just didn't work. I didn't give any attention to either. So what I do is I do use Periscope to promote content. I use Periscope to promote the Blabs. And I use it to give people a heads up on really what's going on. And what I also do is I make sure that everything that I want to be kept, I upload to YouTube. So I always, if I'm periscoping, I do it landscape so that they can be put on YouTube without looking terrible, and then I stick them on the website as well.
Tips keep on coming. I tell you what, this conversation could keep on going all night, I'm sure. But
and I ramble. I do apologize. I ramble.
Just share volume bombs all the time. That's what you do. Well, I reckon passing the hour mark, that just about takes us to the end of this week's show. So I reckon time for a single takeaway from each of the guests and just some sharing of find out more details. So Johnny's thinking away there. What am I going to I'll come to you second, Johnny, okay? Mark, what's your single takeaway from today's discussion?
I think I'm going to adopt one takeaway that I use every time I come on your show, David, and that is just do things properly. Just do things properly. Don't try and rush things. And, this is pertinent when it comes to the blogging, specifically this week. Do things properly, put out good content, and keep doing it, and things will happen.
Lovely. And where can people find you online?
Yes, thank you, sir. Always a pleasure. So my main hub as a person is excellence-expected.com. Just Google Excellence Expected and it will come up. And for everything else, there's Hacksaw Studio or at Mr. Asquith on all of the social networks.
Superb. And also with us today was Johnny Ross.
Hello. My key takeaway would be strategic. So decide what you're trying to achieve, who your audience is, and if you believe, for example, blogging is part of it, then also be consistent. So whatever you decide, whether it be daily, weekly, monthly, whatever that might be consistent, and just bear in mind it is going to take time.
And is live streaming going to be part of that strategy in 2016, Johnny?
Well, for me personally, it needs to be. Am I prepared to commit right now?
New Year's resolution? I'll ask in 2 weeks, maybe.
It needs to be, and I'm actively trying to. I'm still trying to create time in my business, genuinely. So, yeah.
And talking about your business, where can people find you online?
JohnnyRoss.com, johnnyross.com, or JR Consultancy on Twitter. And thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us, Johnny. Great stuff. And I'm Dave Bain, Head of Growth at Analytics SEO, the agency and enterprise SEO platform with big insight. Sign up for a free demo of our platform at analyticsseo.com. And you can also find me interviewing online marketing gurus over at digitalmarketingradio.com. Now, if you're watching the show as a recording, remember to watch the next show live. So head over to thisweekinorganic.com and be part of the live audience for the next show. But for those of you watching live, we also have an audio podcast of previous shows. So again, sign up to email updates at thisweekinorganic.com and you'll receive the podcast links from there too. But until we see you again, have a fantabulous weekend and thank you all for joining us. Adios, and thank you, Mark. Thank you, Johnny. Superb show.
Cheers.
Thank you, David.
Thanks for watching.